Women's shelter in Detroit. Women and children are mostly victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. Domestic violence occurs when a form of behavior in a relationship overruled an intimate partner. Domestic violence can be any of the following: physical, psychological, emotional and sexual. It is a result of assaulting and controlling a person to overpower the other. Mostly verbal threats and sometimes associated with the use of lethal weapons. Sexual abuse occurs when they are forced to engage in sexual action unwillingly. In line with this, Metropolitan Detriot established a program, Ywca Interim House, a pioneer and the biggest shelter in Michigan. The goal and mission of the Ywca Interim House are to serve women and children recuperate from domestic violence and sexual abuse through building a healthy relationship and empowering them to control their lives. These services are for battered women and their children to provide them secured, comfortable, and supportive atmosphere. Ywca Interim House requires referrals to have qualification guidelines, as they can stay from 30 days to 60 days depending on the circumstances. Their 67-bed facility for women and children provides 24/7 helpline facility services, food and clothing, emergency shelter, group counseling for families and children, support group, legal advocacy referrals, childcare, transportation, and other community services. Victims need helps and can be channeled through any of the following can help assist them: furniture, cash, gift certificates, phone cards, clothes for women and children, linens and beddings, appliances, childcare products, office supplies and equipment, and become a volunteer. Their other programs are group and individual counseling, personal protection orders, Downdrivers program, Detroit before and after school programs. Also, read our article on women's shelters in Detroit. If you are a victim, you can ask for help at Detroit Police Victims Assistance Program and their 24/7 hotline 313-833-1660. To learn more about the Victim Assistance Program, visit City of Detroit. City of Detriot Victims Assistance Program provides free and confidential individual and group counseling with a licensed social worker, as they also offer grief and loss counseling, community debriefing, assistance claims, and support on the criminal justice process. Battered Women's Shelter in Detroit. According to the Michigan State of Police, domestic violence is a crime and is punishable by up to 93 days in prison, either with a fine of $500. As long as you are one of the following: you are under a domestic connection, spouse or previous partner, dating or previously dating, has a child in common, and staying under the same resident or previously living together, if free will is confined, and afraid of their spouse, then the person is prey to domestic violence. Here are some of the common acts of an abuser: physical abuse. Slapped, bitten, punched, pushed, kicked, shoved, hit, battered, strangled, use of weapons, physically forced, restricted from doing things, abandoned during difficult conditions, not allowed to leave the house, and help is deprived when ill, pregnant, or injured. Sexual abuse. Obliged to do or watch sex, obliged to do a sexual act, and obliged to dress up more sexually. Psychological and emotional abuse. Being followed or tracked unwillingly, unreasonably blaming the victim, thoughts are being manipulated, being threatened to harm your loved ones, and being mocked. Economic abuse. Spouse control over finances, no access to bank accounts and cards, no access to vehicles, limited access to health support, and being prohibited to have a job or to go to school. Ways to help the victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. Do not blame the victim. Help the victim instead by saying it is not her fault. Educate oneself on domestic violence and sexual abuse. Listen and believe what the victim is saying and avoid judging. Validate the victim feeling, take the victim's story seriously, and tell her what to do, and support and respect the victim's decisions. To learn more about domestic violence, kindly visit Michigan Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence website at www.mcadsv.org. You may click the Locate Help Near You button or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, 7233. You may also visit WIN Network to reach out for Domestic Violence Directory and locate domestic violence services near you. Their listings include shelters, transitional housing, counseling, support groups, and others that provide domestic violence programs. 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 And others that provide domestic. Detroit Lakes Women's Shelter. Lake's Crisis and Resource Center has this shelter called Mary's Place, which provides shelters to battered women and children who are victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse in a secure atmosphere. They make sure that their resident will gain access to legal assistance in arranging orders for protection and amendments. Their goal is to ensure the safety and independence of each family and securing that they meet their needs in their stay up to 30 days. Mary's Place gives access to public transportation. Also, residents can gain access to support assembly, classes, and one-on-one counseling directing on recognizing their needs. Needs include the following: caring for oneself, healthy relationship, parenting and basic life skills. Mary's Place also offers childcare, employment, education, financial assistance and healthcare. They serve places from Becker, Monoman, and Norman counties and business hours are 8:30 a.m. 4:30 p.m. from Monday to Friday. Hotline to access: Crisis Line 218-847-7446, Crisis Line, Mental Health 218-850-4357, Main Office 218-847-8572, toll free, Crisis Line 218-754-9683, toll free, Crisis Line Mental Health 218-380-3621. Other services of Laker Crisis and Resources Centers are as follows: Children's Services, a program that assists children who experienced and witnessed abuse. Crime Victim Advocacy offers a 24/7 hotline for victims of domestic violence, sexual abuse, and general crime with well-trained advocates that will listen, support, and gives information. Healthy Families, the program works by advocates to deliver ongoing assistance, education, and help in finding networks to community networks. Kinship, mentoring program wherein a helpful adult will mentor a kid through active and fun activities which encourage steadiness, sustenance, friendship, and community. Mary's Place Shelter is a shelter for battered women and their families as a victim of domestic and sexual abuse as they secure their safety and needs. Mental Health, a program that assists violence and trauma-focused mental facilities with the use of eclectic approach with mechanisms of CBT, TFCBT, interpersonal, person-centered, and strength-based work. Partners in Parenting delivers a public group for parents and their children as they learn, have fun, share happiness and challenges while developing each other. Positive Connections is a service for children and their parents relating unhealthy relationship or parenting time conflict through parental coaching, supervised parenting time, and specialized staff-assisted exchange. Lake Crisis and Resource Center is also a visitation center and an emergency shelter for victims of domestic violence, sexual abuse, general crimes, and abused children. Women's Shelter in Detroit, Michigan. As stated by Domestic Shelters, there are only 4 shelters in Detroit, Michigan for domestic violence and sexual abuse victims. There are also 18 other shelters outside of Detroit, like places in Windsor, Oak Park, and Warren that also offers help for domestic violence and sexual abuse victims. The 4 shelters in Detroit, Michigan are: 1. Women in Touch Hotline, 313-737-7168 or 313-737-7168. 2. Ywca Interim House Metro Detroit Hotline, 313-861-5300 or 313-862-3580. 3. Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries Genesis House 3 Hotline, 313-993-4700. 4. Coalition on Temporary Shelter Hotline, 313-831-3777. Victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse have questions running in their minds. Some of the questions are related as follows: 1. Coercive control. 2. Emotional abuse. 3. Verbal abuse. 4. Elder abuse. 5. Financial abuse. 6. Sexual abuse. 7. How to determine abuse. 8. Preparing to leave. 9. Trauma bonding. 10. Narcissism disorder. 11. Domestic violence. 12. What to do. 13. How to restore oneself. 14. My children. 15. Restraining order toolkits and answers to these questions are found on the website of the domestic shelter. Domestic shelters help in finding the right shelter and information's victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse easier. Of domestic violence